Hello, dear friends. Nice to see you again. Come, prepare some tea. Another interesting story is waiting for you to discover. Quickly take your seats, fasten your seat belts, and the train will depart now. Today's story is about the billionaire who left his wife, only to have her take control of his empire 10 years later. In the bustling financial district of Manhattan, the towering skyscraper of Sterling Enterprises gleamed under the morning sun. Its glass facade reflected the city's energy, a symbol of power and ambition. On the 45th floor, Nathan Sterling stood by his panoramic window, a glass of whiskey in hand, staring blankly at the horizon. At 46, he had everything he had ever strived for: wealth, influence, and prestige. Yet, a deep void lingered beneath the surface, one that not even his achievements could fill. His train of thought was broken by his assistant, Clara, who entered briskly with a folder. "Mr. Sterling, the merger documents with Orion Corporation have arrived. The board is expecting you in the conference room." Nathan adjusted his tailored suit in the mirror, his reflection portraying the image of a man who had conquered the world. But his eyes, heavy with regret, revealed the cost of that conquest. His mind flashed back to a pivotal night a decade earlier when he made a decision that changed his life. "Elena, love is a distraction I can't afford right now," he had told his wife with cold resolve. "I need to focus on building something bigger, something that matters." Her tearful gaze stayed with him, her words cutting through his ambition. "Success without someone to share it with is hollow, Nathan." Those were the last words she said before walking out of his life. In the boardroom, the meeting progressed seamlessly. The merger with Orion Corporation was critical for Sterling Enterprises to expand into the South American market. Everything seemed in order, until Clara entered suddenly, her expression troubled. "Mr. Sterling, there's been an update regarding tomorrow's meeting with Orion Corporation. The CEO finalizing the deal is Elena Parker." Her name hit him like a thunderclap. The room fell silent as Nathan processed the revelation. Elena, his ex-wife, now held the fate of his company in her hands. "How long has she been CEO?" he asked, struggling to keep his voice steady. "3 years, sir. She's completely restructured the company. Orion's stock has tripled under her leadership." Nathan dismissed the team, retreating to the solitude of his office. Memories he had long buried resurfaced. Missed anniversaries, broken promises, and the arguments over his relentless priorities. He had once believed that love was a hindrance to greatness. Now, Elena stood not as the woman he had left behind, but as a force to be reckoned with in the business world. That night, in his penthouse, Nathan obsessively read every article about Elena. She had transformed from a hopeful idealist into a commanding CEO. The photographs showed a woman exuding elegance and confidence, a stark contrast to the young dreamer he had underestimated. The following day would not be a typical business negotiation. It would be a reckoning. Nathan would confront his past in the form of the woman he had abandoned to pursue his ambitions. As the sun rose over Manhattan, Nathan entered Orion Corporation's headquarters. The air was thick with tension, executives moving with a sense of urgency. Despite his confident stride, Nathan's heart raced with unease. In the boardroom, time seemed to freeze. Elena stood by the window, her poised silhouette framed against the city skyline. She wore a sleek ivory suit, radiating authority. When she turned to face him, Nathan recognized the fierce determination in her eyes that had captivated him years ago. But now, that determination was accompanied by a cold distance he hadn't seen before. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling," she said, her tone professional and detached. "Please take a seat." The other executives began to file into the room, but for Nathan and Elena, it was as though time had frozen. 10 years of separation seemed to converge in this singular moment. "Elena, It's been a long time, Nathan ventured, searching her expression for a glimmer of familiarity. I'd prefer if we stayed focused on business, Mr. Sterling, she replied curtly, taking her place at the head of the table. We have much to discuss regarding this merger. As the presentation commenced, Nathan observed, captivated, as Elena commanded the room. She fielded every question, dissected every figure, and delivered strategic insights with an authority that left no doubt why she now led one of the most powerful companies in the region. She was still the woman who had once dreamed of building something significant, but her dreams had materialized far beyond what he had imagined. As Nathan's team outlined the merger terms, Elena began to interject with pointed questions, exposing the weaknesses in the proposal. Her critique was sharp and unrelenting. Nathan's executives fidgeted under the weight of her scrutiny. These financial projections are overly optimistic, Elena concluded, closing her tablet with finality. Your integration plan fails to account for key nuances of the South American market. Nathan attempted to recover. Elena, we can revise the terms to address Mrs. Parker, she corrected with a polite yet icy smile. And no, Mr. Sterling, this isn't a matter of simple adjustments. Orion Corporation will not be proceeding with this merger. The room fell into an uneasy silence. Nathan's team exchanged anxious glances while he struggled to maintain composure, the situation slipping further from his grasp. I'd like a private moment with Mrs. Parker, Nathan requested, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Once the room cleared, leaving them alone for the first time in a decade, Nathan turned to her. Is this personal, Elena? Elena calmly gathered her documents, her composure unshaken. Personal? No, Nathan. This is strictly professional. You taught me that emotions have no place in business, remember? People change, he said, almost pleading. I've changed. Yes, we all change, she replied, her voice cool. I'm no longer the woman you left behind for your ambitions. And you, well, you're still the man who puts success above everything else. The difference now is that I know how to play the game just as well as you. As she moved toward the door, Elena paused and glanced back. Oh, by the way, there's a gala dinner next week hosted by the New York Business Council. I imagine we'll cross paths again. Nathan was left alone in the boardroom, reflecting on the bitter irony. He had abandoned love for success, and now she had both. That afternoon, as he returned to his office, Nathan couldn't stop replaying the encounter in his mind. Elena's transformation intrigued and unsettled him. How had she risen so quickly? Who had mentored her, supported her ascent? The questions consumed him, and for the first time in years, Nathan felt the sting of inadequacy. In the solitude of his office, surrounded by stacks of reports and empty coffee cups, Nathan immersed himself in an obsessive quest for answers. His monitors displayed interviews, articles, and profiles that charted Elena Parker's meteoric rise. Clara, he called through the intercom to his assistant, his voice resolute. I need every piece of information you can find on Elena Parker. Everything. As he awaited the information, a name began to surface repeatedly in his research. Daniel Carter, his former college friend and now a board member at Orion. The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. When Clara returned with a folder, her expression was guarded. Mr. Sterling, I found something intriguing, she said, spreading several documents across the desk. Mrs. Parker joined Orion Corporation shortly after your separation. Her first role was as a direct advisor to Daniel Carter. Nathan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Daniel, his confidant of many years, the man who had stood beside him at his wedding to Elena, who had witnessed their painful separation. Had he been aiding her all this time? Corporate photos showed Daniel and Elena together at various events, board meetings, charity galas, and inaugurations. In every image, their partnership was unmistakable. As Elena rose through the corporate ranks, Daniel was a constant presence at her side, offering guidance and support. Determined to confront this revelation, Nathan dialed Daniel's private number. After a few rings, a familiar voice answered. "Nathan, what a surprise. I assume this is about the meeting the other day? Why didn't you tell me, Daniel? All these years, why didn't you say anything?" Nathan's voice was sharp, laced with betrayal. "Tell you what." Daniel's tone shifted, measured but firm. "That I helped Elena when you left her for your ambitions? That I recognized her potential when you only saw her as a distraction?" The conversation turned tense, Daniel's voice brimming with reproach. "Elena came to my office years ago, shattered. But where you saw weakness, I saw intelligence, resilience, and drive. It wasn't hard to convince the board to give her a chance. And you never thought to mention this? Not at our meetings? Not over dinner?" Nathan's voice rose, a mixture of anger and guilt. "Did you consult your friends before deciding to break her heart?" Daniel retorted sharply. "Elena asked for discretion, and I honored her request. Every promotion, every achievement, she earned them on her own. All I did was open the first door." Nathan sank into his chair, his mind racing. Memories of Daniel sidestepping conversations about Orion Corporation suddenly made sense. The dinners where he'd changed the subject whenever Elena came up now felt like a glaring omission. After a long pause, Daniel spoke again. "There's something else you should know. Elena is facing a challenge on the board. Some directors are questioning her recent decisions, including rejecting your merger proposal." "Why are you telling me this?" Nathan asked, his voice softening. "Because, despite everything, you're still my friend. And because both you and Elena need closure. The gala dinner hosted by the New York Business Council next week will be the perfect opportunity for that." As Nathan hung up, he sat motionless in his office. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over his desk. The photographs of Elena and Daniel seemed to stare back at him, laden with meaning. Confusion and betrayal warred within him, but so did a reluctant admiration. Elena had taken the pain of his abandonment and turned it into strength, thriving in a way he had never anticipated. And Daniel, whom Nathan had moments ago considered a traitor, hadn't he simply done what Nathan should have done? Supported and believed in her? As night fell over the city, Nathan made a decision. The gala dinner would not be just another networking event. It would be his chance to uncover the full story of what had happened in his absence. And perhaps it could be the first step toward making amends for the damage he had caused. Carter's private office held more secrets than Nathan could have imagined. After their revealing phone call, Nathan decided to visit his old friend, seeking clarity. The historic brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, where Daniel Carter's personal office was located, exuded the timeless charm of old New York. "I knew you'd come," Daniel said, gesturing to a leather armchair as he poured 2 cups of coffee. "There's something I've kept all these years, waiting for the right moment." Daniel approached a concealed safe behind an antique painting. From it, he retrieved a yellowed envelope, its edges worn with time. "Elena asked me to hold on to this. They're the letters she wrote during the first months after you left. She never sent them." Nathan took the envelope with trembling hands. The faded but familiar handwriting on the front, Elena's, made his heart ache. "Why are you showing me this now?" he asked. "Because you need to understand," Daniel said, his tone serious. "Not just what you did, but who she really is." The first letter, dated a week after their separation, made Nathan's chest tighten as he read. "Dear Nathan, today, I signed the divorce papers. The lawyer said it was one of the quickest cases he's handled. Efficiency. It's what you're known for, isn't it? Even in breaking my heart. Do you know what's hardest? It's not sleeping alone in our bed or explaining to my mother why her favorite son-in-law won't be at family dinners anymore. It's knowing you still believe love is a weakness. Today, I got my first real job. No, I won't tell you where. Even if I could send this letter, I wouldn't. I need to build something for myself. Without your shadow, your name, or your influence. Daniel gave me an opportunity, and I'll prove I'm more than just Nathan Sterling's ex-wife. Nathan moved to the second letter, written 2 months later. Nights are the hardest, not because I miss you, though sometimes I do, but because my mind won't stop racing. Ideas flood in, new ones every night. I'm learning so much, Nathan. Every day, I uncover something new about finance, strategy, leadership. Remember when you said I was too idealistic for the corporate world? You were wrong. Letter after letter chronicled Elena's transformation, from her initial heartbreak to her growing determination and self-confidence. The final letter, written a year after their separation, felt like a closure Nathan didn't know he needed. This will be my last letter. Like the others, you'll never read it. I no longer write for you, Nathan. I write for myself. Today, I was promoted to Special Projects Manager. Daniel says this is just the beginning, and for the first time, I believe him. For the first time, I feel like my future belongs to me. Thank you for leaving. Your departure forced me to find myself. One day, when our paths inevitably cross in this business world, I hope you see the woman I've always been, the one you never cared to notice. With gratitude for the hardest lesson, Elena. Nathan looked up from the letters, meeting Daniel's steady gaze. She was never weak, Nathan. She just needed the chance to prove it. Why did you keep these letters all this time? Nathan asked, his voice heavy with emotion. Because she asked me to. They're a testament to her journey, and I knew, someday, they'd be important. Daniel leaned back in his chair, his expression turning serious. The board is preparing a vote next week to remove Elena as CEO. They're questioning her recent decisions, including her rejection of your merger. The revelation hit Nathan like a wave of cold water. The letters, once a simple record of the past, now carried the weight of unspoken truths and unfulfilled promises. The gala dinner, Nathan murmured. Yes, Daniel confirmed. It will happen before the vote. And for the first time in her career, Elena will need allies. The question is, Nathan, what will you do with this information? The late afternoon sun streamed through the office windows, casting long shadows on the desk. The scattered letters glowed softly in the golden light, each word a reminder of Elena's resilience and transformation. Nathan's decision would not only shape his future but also that of the woman he had abandoned, who now, ironically, might need his help. The main ballroom of the St. Regis Hotel sparkled with the grandeur befitting New York's elite. Bohemian crystal chandeliers, exquisite floral arrangements, and the soft hum of a string quartet created an atmosphere of timeless elegance. It was the most important night of the year in the corporate world, and for Nathan Sterling, it was a night that could redefine everything. Nathan adjusted his black silk tie, his gaze fixed on the arriving guests as he stood in a strategic corner of the grand ballroom. The whispers about Elena's potential removal as CEO of Orion Corporation flowed like a hidden current beneath the surface of polished smiles and trivial conversations. Mr. Sterling, Clara, his assistant, greeted him quietly. Mrs. Parker has arrived. Elena appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her striking red dress a bold contrast to her olive complexion. Her entrance caused a ripple of silence to sweep through the room. She carried herself with the poise and confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention, though Nathan, after reading her letters, noticed subtle tension in her posture. "Impressive, isn't she?" Daniel said, appearing beside Nathan. "She always knows how to make an entrance. Does she know you showed me the letters?" Nathan asked, his eyes never leaving Elena. "No," Daniel replied with a small smile. "That's your card to play, if you choose to. The orchestra began a soft waltz as several executives approached Elena, each requesting a dance. She politely declined, maintaining brief, professional conversations. From across the room, her eyes occasionally met Nathan's, the exchanges unspoken but deliberate, as though they were pieces in a high-stakes chess game. "The board members are here," Daniel whispered, nodding toward a group near the bar. "They're deciding her future over champagne." Nathan studied the men Daniel indicated, well-known faces in the business world, each holding the power to determine Elena's fate with a single vote. Resolving to act, Nathan crossed the room. Conversations fell silent as he passed, the tension palpable. The history between him and Elena was no secret, and all eyes followed his steps as he approached her. She stood in the middle of a circle of investors, engaging them with her characteristic poise. "Would you grant me this dance?" Nathan asked, extending his hand. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Elena regarded him with a mix of surprise and wariness, while the onlookers held their breath, eager to see how she would respond. "For old time's sake," he added, offering a faint smile that only she would understand. After a moment's hesitation, Elena placed her hand in his. As if on cue, the orchestra transitioned to a passionate tango, and the couples on the dance floor moved aside, leaving the spotlight to them. "Bold move, Nathan," Elena murmured as they began to glide across the floor. "What's your game?" "I know about the board," he replied softly, guiding her into a flawless turn. "And I know you need allies. And now you're suddenly concerned about my career?" Her tone carried a sharp edge of irony. "I'm concerned about fixing past mistakes," he said earnestly, drawing her closer. "I also know about the letters." Elena tensed but maintained the rhythm of their dance. "Daniel," she sighed, "I should have guessed he'd show them to you." "They were enlightening," Nathan said, his voice low. "Especially the last one." The music swelled to its climax, and Nathan dipped Elena in a dramatic flourish. Applause erupted from the crowd, oblivious to the tension-laden exchange that had just unfolded on the dance floor. "The board votes next week," Elena said, regaining her composure as they straightened. "Why should I trust you now?" "Because this time," Nathan replied, his tone resolute, "I'm not seeking power. I'm seeking redemption." As the music ended, they parted under the applause of the guests. Elena studied him intently, as though weighing the sincerity of his words. "Tomorrow, my office, 9 a.m., she said at last. "Bring a real proposal, not just pretty words." With that, she walked away, turning her attention to the other guests. Nathan noticed how the board members watched them closely, their interest clearly piqued. The dance, he realized, had been far more than a social courtesy. It had been a calculated statement of intent. Daniel approached, handing Nathan a glass of champagne. "Well," he said with a knowing smile, "that was one way to make an impression." "Well played, but remember, this time, it's not just your reputation or your company at stake. This time, her future is on the line." The evening unfolded as usual, with polite conversations and calculated smiles, but an undeniable shift had occurred. Among the whispers and glances, a new narrative began to take shape. The lingering question was whether Nathan Sterling would finally choose the right path. The next morning greeted New York with a soft drizzle, casting a muted gray veil over the towering skyscrapers. Nathan arrived at Orion Corporation's headquarters 20 minutes early, his briefcase containing not only financial documents, but also a carefully crafted proposal he had spent the entire night refining. Elena's office occupied a corner of the executive floor, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of the city. Unlike Nathan's stark and minimalist office, Elena's space felt personal and warm, adorned with contemporary art, thriving plants, and in one corner, an old typewriter. "I kept it all these years," Elena said, noticing his gaze linger on the machine. It's where I used to write my letters. Nathan felt a lump in his throat. Elena, about those letters? No, she interrupted, taking her seat behind the desk. We're here for business. You said you had a proposal. Nathan nodded, drawing a folder from his briefcase. I've been analyzing the board's concerns. Their main argument against you is that your recent decisions are too conservative, that you've been avoiding expansion opportunities. Like rejecting your merger proposal, Elena added, raising an eyebrow. Exactly. But what they failed to see is that your decisions have shielded Orion from market volatility. Your approach isn't conservative, it's strategic. Elena watched as Nathan spread graphs and projections across her desk. My proposal is different from the original merger, he continued. Instead of a complete acquisition, I suggest a strategic alliance. Orion would maintain its autonomy, but we'd share resources and access new markets together. And what's in it for you? Elena asked, studying the documents with a skeptical eye. Credibility, Nathan said earnestly. Your reputation is impeccable. An alliance with you would benefit both companies and send a clear message to the board. They're not dealing with a cautious CEO, but a visionary strategist. Elena rose from her chair and walked to the window, gazing out at the rain-soaked city. Do you know what's ironic, Nathan? After all this time, you still think you can solve everything with business strategies. I'm not trying to fix the past, Nathan replied, joining her by the window. I'm trying to build a future. She turned to face him. And the letters? Did you read them all? Every word, Nathan admitted. They showed me what I failed to see a decade ago. Your strength, your vision, your ability to turn pain into power. A silence settled between them, heavy with unspoken emotions. The rain tapped softly against the glass, a rhythmic backdrop to their thoughts. There's something you should know, Elena said at last. The real reason the board is so intent on removing me. She walked back to her desk, retrieving another folder. I've been developing a corporate social responsibility initiative that would fundamentally change Orion's business model. I want to allocate 30% of our profits to community development and sustainability programs. Nathan opened the folder and reviewed the project. It was ambitious, innovative, and bold, a perfect reflection of the Elena he had known long ago. Idealistic, yet practical. This is why you rejected the original merger, Nathan said, realization dawning. My proposal would have compromised this vision, Elena finished. I couldn't let that happen. It made it impossible to implement this project, Nathan finished, realization dawning. That's right, Elena confirmed. I couldn't abandon this dream, not even for the financial security your merger offered. Nathan sat down, absorbing her words. His mind raced with ideas, considering ways to reshape his proposal to integrate her vision into a broader framework that could satisfy both the shareholders and her ambitious goals. Give me 24 hours, he said finally. I can rework the proposal to include your project. More than that, I can help you present it in a way the board can't refuse. Elena studied him for a long moment, as if trying to discern whether he had truly changed. 24 hours, she agreed. But remember, Nathan, you're not just negotiating with a CEO. You're negotiating with a woman who learned not to need you. As Nathan reached the door, Elena added, By the way, I still have the last letter I never sent. The one I wrote the night I got this position. Maybe it's time you read it. She handed him an envelope, its weight feeling heavier than it should as he slipped it into his jacket pocket. Back at his office, Nathan watched the rain transform New York streets into shimmering rivers of light reflected from the towering buildings. Sitting at his desk, he retrieved the envelope with trembling hands. The letterhead of Orion Corporation made this letter stand apart from the others. Its date matched the day Elena had been named CEO, 3 years ago. Nathan unfolded the paper, his heart pounding as he began to read. Dear Nathan, today, I was named CEO of Orion Corporation. While I was toasting with the board and receiving congratulations, I couldn't help but think of you, not with nostalgia or pain, but with clarity. I owe you gratitude. Your departure was the catalyst that pushed me to discover my true potential. Every rejection became fuel, every closed door a reason to carve my own path. Yes, Daniel was my mentor, but the strength to get here was always within me. Do you remember when you told me that love was a distraction you couldn't afford? How wrong you were. Love, in all its forms, is what brought me here. Love for my work, for my ideals, for the possibility of creating something meaningful. Even the self-love I found after you left. Now, sitting in this office overlooking the city, I think of the woman I was when we met. You once called my dreams too idealistic. But now, I have the power to make those dreams a reality, to prove that business success and social impact can coexist. I keep this letter as a reminder of a chapter that's closing. One day, our paths will cross again in this corporate world you cherish so much. When that day comes, I hope you'll see not the woman you left, but the woman I was always meant to be. With gratitude for the lesson, Elena. P.S. The social responsibility project the board fears so much. It was my dream long before I met you. The difference now is, I have the power to make it real. Nathan placed the letter on his desk, its words reverberating in his mind. Memories of Elena's early ideas, her belief that companies could drive meaningful change, surfaced, bringing with them a wave of guilt. He had dismissed her vision as naive, yet she had brought it to life without him. Clara, Nathan called into the intercom. Cancel all my meetings today. And get me every report you can find on successful corporate social responsibility programs in North America. The hours that followed were a blur of projections, case studies, and late-night brainstorming. The original proposal he'd worked on earlier began to morph into something far greater. Not just a business plan, but a statement of values, reflecting what he had learned from her. As he worked, Elena's words echoed in his mind. She had not only survived his abandonment, she had thrived, crafting a vision he now had the chance to support and expand. By the time the sun set over the city, Nathan had finalized the new proposal. It wasn't just a document, it was a declaration, a promise to honor Elena's vision and the lessons he had learned from her resilience. His phone buzzed, breaking the silence. A message from Daniel read. The board moved up the vote. It's happening tomorrow morning, first thing. Nathan leaned back in his chair, the weight of the moment sinking in. Tomorrow, everything would be decided, for Elena, for Orion, and for him. That morning, Nathan stood at his office window, his gaze fixed on the distant Orion Corporation building. Time was slipping away, and the decision before him would define not only Elena's future as CEO, but also the redemption he so desperately sought. Elena's final letter had reshaped everything. This wasn't just about preserving a position or a company. It was about safeguarding a vision, a dream that Nathan now understood was more meaningful than any corporate deal. The boardroom of Orion buzzed with an undercurrent of tension as Nathan entered, just minutes before the critical meeting was set to begin. Board members, clad in sharp suits, exchanged glances filled with suspicion and expectation. Elena sat at the head of the table, her outward composure a stark contrast to the storm Nathan knew was brewing inside her. Mr. Sterling, one of the board members greeted him, visibly surprised. We weren't expecting your presence today. I'm here at Mrs. Parker's request, Nathan replied, taking the seat beside Elena. We have a proposal that I believe the board will find compelling. The chairman of the board, a gray-haired man named Henry Calder, tapped the table with his gavel. Very well. Let's begin. The primary agenda item today is the vote on Mrs. Parker's continuation as CEO of Orion Corporation. Elena rose from her chair, her stance firm and resolute. Before proceeding with the vote, she began, "I'd like to present a proposal that could fundamentally change the trajectory of our company." Mrs. Parker, another board member, interrupted. "We've already extensively debated your social responsibility project." "What you're about to hear," Nathan interjected, rising to stand beside Elena, "is far more than a simple project. It's a transformative vision for Orion Corporation." Over the next hour, Nathan and Elena presented their collaborative plan. It was a bold integration of Nathan's strategic alliance concept with Elena's social responsibility initiative. Backed by meticulous case studies and detailed financial projections, the proposal combined economic growth with large-scale community impact. "What we propose," Elena explained, "is a strategic alliance between Orion Corporation and Sterling Enterprises. This partnership will allow us to expand into new markets while implementing impactful community development programs." Nathan continued, "Our analysis indicates that by aligning Mrs. Parker's vision with a targeted growth strategy, we can achieve a 40% increase in brand value and sustain annual growth of 25% over the next 5 years. Initially met with skepticism, the board members gradually leaned in, their expressions shifting to intrigue and admiration as the presentation unfolded. "But how can we be sure this isn't just a tactic to delay the vote?" Chairman Calder asked, his tone measured but skeptical. Elena responded with a confident smile, one Nathan recognized from their past, brimming with determination. "Because this is about more than a vote," she said. "This is an opportunity to redefine what it means to be a successful corporation in the 21st century." Nathan added, "And to underscore our commitment, I'm willing to put my reputation on the line. If this initiative fails to meet its objectives within 18 months, I will resign from my position on the board of Sterling Enterprises." A wave of astonishment swept through the room. Nathan's bold gamble underscored his faith in both the plan and Elena's leadership. Calder cleared his throat, his expression thoughtful. "In light of this unexpected development, I propose postponing the vote on Mrs. Parker's leadership. Instead, let us vote on the approval of this joint plan." The vote was called, and the response was nearly unanimous. As each yes was pronounced, Nathan saw the tension in Elena's posture melt away, replaced by a quiet but profound relief. When the final vote was counted, Calder declared, "The plan is approved. Mrs. Parker will remain as CEO of Orion Corporation." As CEO of Orion Corporation, Elena Parker was officially entrusted with implementing the bold new strategy in partnership with Sterling Enterprises. Applause filled the boardroom, but for Nathan and Elena, the world seemed to pause. Their eyes met, heavy with emotions left unspoken, relief, triumph, and something deeper neither dared to name. As the board members approached to offer congratulations, Nathan leaned toward Elena and murmured, "I think we have a lot to discuss." Elena nodded, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "Yes, but this time as equals." The morning sun poured into the room, symbolizing a new dawn, not just for their companies, but perhaps for business itself. The months following the historic board meeting were a whirlwind of activity. Nathan and Elena worked tirelessly, merging their business acumen and social visions. Late nights and endless meetings forged a renewed partnership, one that went beyond professional collaboration. One Friday afternoon, nearly 6 months later, Nathan and Elena found themselves at a cafe terrace in Brooklyn Heights. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. "The first quarter results have exceeded all expectations," Elena remarked, scanning documents on her tablet. "The community development program in the Bronx is already showing measurable impacts." Nathan nodded, his satisfaction evident. "And the projections for next year are even better. It seems our experiment is working." Setting her tablet aside, Elena regarded Nathan with a mix of curiosity and something unspoken. I never asked. Why did you really decide to help me? I know you read the letters, but... Nathan paused, staring out at the sprawling city. It was your last letter, he said softly. It made me realize how much I'd lost. Not just losing you, but abandoning the ideals we once shared. That letter was my second chance, not only to make amends with you, but to become the kind of leader and person I always wanted to be. Elena looked at him, genuinely surprised. Wow, you've been doing some serious reflecting. I've had an excellent teacher these past few months, he said, a warm smile lighting his face. A comfortable silence settled between them, filled with possibilities. You know what's most ironic? Elena mused. In the end, we achieved what we both wanted, but in a way neither of us could have imagined 10 years ago. Life has a curious way of teaching us lessons, Nathan replied. Sometimes, you have to lose something to truly appreciate it. Elena nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. And now what? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan turned to her, meeting her eyes. Now, I think it's time to write a new chapter, one where we don't have to choose between professional success and personal fulfillment. Elena smirked, though her eyes glimmered with emotion. Are you proposing another merger, Mr. Sterling? More like an alliance, Nathan replied, gently taking her hand. One where we can grow, together and separately, without sacrificing our dreams or commitments. Elena intertwined her fingers with his, a simple but profound gesture. I like the sound of that, she said with a smile. As the sun dipped below the horizon, draping the city in golden light, Nathan and Elena remained on the terrace. They spoke of future plans, new dreams, and the second chances that had brought them here. Back at Orion Corporation and Sterling Enterprises, employees began to notice a shift, not just in policies or initiatives, but in the very atmosphere. A renewed sense of purpose rippled through every corner of both organizations, driven by a vision that balanced business success with meaningful impact. And so, as night fell over New York City, a new era began. One where profitability and social responsibility were no longer opposing forces but two sides of the same coin. Nathan and Elena, once divided by ambition and misunderstanding, now stood united by a shared purpose and a deeper understanding. Their story, which had begun as one of separation and rivalry, had transformed into a tale of redemption, collaboration, and the possibility of love, stronger and wiser than before. As they rose to leave, the city sparkled below them, a testament to the possibilities of reinvention. They both knew this was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new and exciting chapter. Thank you for taking the time to watch today's story. For more meaningful stories, please subscribe to our channel. Your support is a great source of motivation for us. Goodbye and see you again in the next stories.